All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about one of the most incredible things humanity has ever done, an event that brought the entire planet together. But it's also somehow the subject of one of the most stubborn and compelling conspiracy theories of all time. We are, of course, talking about the Apollo moon landing. You know these words. They marked a new chapter in human history. I mean, can you imagine? July 20th, 1969. Hundreds of millions of people are just glued to their TVs, watching a human being walk on another world for the very first time. It was just this incredible moment of achievement, a total win for human curiosity and guts.
Because, almost as soon as the celebrations died down, this other story started to bubble up. A story that said the rockets, the footage, the whole thing was a giant, multi-billion-dollar fake. So what's the real story? Was it our finest hour or our biggest lie? Let's get into the evidence. So, how in the world did we go from this moment of absolute triumph to this place of deep, lasting doubt? Well, the seeds of the conspiracy weren't planted up on the moon. Nope, they were planted right here on Earth, during a pretty chaotic time.
Think about the context, right? The space race was all about Cold War one-upmanship with the Soviets. But just a few years later, in the early 70s, trust in the government was hitting rock bottom. You had the Vietnam War, you had Watergate, people were feeling lied to. And that was the perfect soil for a book like Bill Kaysing's to grow. The argument was simple, and honestly pretty tempting. If they'll lie about a war, why wouldn't they lie about the moon? So, with the stage set, let's open up the file. What's the actual evidence that people point to? We're going to start with the two biggest visual arguments you always hear about.
Okay, this is the big one. The classic. Skeptics will show you the video of the astronauts planting the flag, and it's rippling. It looks like it's fluttering. But wait a minute. There's no wind on the moon, right? It's a vacuum. So how is that possible? It has to be a breeze, maybe on a movie set somewhere in the desert.
Well, the answer isn't a secret film studio. It's actually just some basic high school physics. See, here on Earth, air friction slows things down. In a vacuum, there's nothing to stop an object in motion. So the ripples you see are just the leftover energy from the astronauts twisting and turning the flagpole to get it into the ground. Without any air to stop them, those ripples just kept on going. And the waving look? That's just a little horizontal bar they built into the flag, so it would fly straight out instead of just hanging there.
All right, next up is the sky. In every single photo from the moon, it's just pitch black, no stars. And the argument goes, without an atmosphere messing up the view, the stars should be incredibly bright. So, the fact that they're missing must mean the pictures were faked in a studio.
But again, the real explanation is just photography 101. Seriously, you can try this yourself. Go outside at night and take a picture of a friend standing next to a bright streetlight. To get your friend's face in the photo without it being a blown-out white mess, your camera has to use a really fast shutter speed. And that fast setting means the faint light from the stars in the background won't even register. The moon's surface and those white astronaut suits were so brightly lit by the sun that the exact same thing happened.
Look, we could argue about old photographs forever. So let's pivot to the physical evidence. The stuff that is quite literally out of this world. The kind of stuff you just can't fake. Take a look at this number, 382 kilos. That's 842 pounds. That's like the weight of a motorcycle. What on Earth, or maybe off Earth, could this number possibly represent?
That is the total weight of the moon rocks the Apollo missions brought home. We're not talking about a handful of pebbles here. This is a massive collection of material that has been studied by thousands of scientists all over the world for more than 50 years. And these rocks are the ultimate mic drop. Why? Because they have a story to tell that could only have happened on the moon. For one, they are bone dry. There's zero water locked into their structure, which is basically impossible for any rock formed on Earth. Their surfaces are covered in these tiny little craters called zat pits from micrometeorites that our atmosphere would have burned up. They even contain a brand new mineral, Armalcolite, named after Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. How cool is that? You simply cannot fake this stuff.
But the rocks aren't the only smoking gun. To find the next piece of proof, we have to look at the politics. We have to remember, NASA wasn't just doing this for fun. The whole planet, including their #1 enemy, was watching every single move.
And that brings us to what might be the most powerful piece of evidence of all. It's not about something NASA did. It's about something their greatest rival didn't do.
The Soviet Union had spies, listening posts, and tracking systems all over the world. They were following Apollo's every move. Just think about it. If they could have proven the Americans faked it, it would have been the biggest propaganda win in history. The ultimate Cold War knockout punch.
but they never said a single word. In fact, their state-run media officially congratulated the US on its success. Their silence on the conspiracy theory is absolutely deafening.
And it's not just evidence from back then. In the last couple of decades, space agencies from Japan, China, and India have all sent their own orbiters to the moon. And what did they see? They all took high-resolution pictures of the Apollo landing sites. And you can see it all. The lander stages, the rover tracks, even the walking paths of the astronauts still there in the dust.
But what if I told you there's a piece of Apollo hardware still on the moon that we are actively using every single day as part of an ongoing science experiment?
Okay, this is amazing. The Apollo astronauts left behind these special panels of mirrors on the moon. And for over 50 years, observatories right here on Earth have been shooting powerful lasers at them. By timing how long it takes for the laser beam to bounce back, we can measure the exact distance to the moon down to the millimeter. This is real, ongoing science, and it only works because those mirrors are sitting exactly where the astronauts reported leaving them.
So, we've got moon rocks you can hold, rival nations confirming it happened, modern spacecraft taking pictures of the footprints, and an active experiment still running on the surface. The case seems pretty airtight, right? So the big question is, why do millions of smart people all over the world still believe it was a hoax?
Well, the answer isn't about intelligence, it's about human psychology. Research shows that we're often drawn to conspiracies because they satisfy some really deep human needs. First, there's the need for understanding. A simple story can feel a lot better than a complex, messy reality. Then there's the need for control. In a world that feels chaotic, knowing a secret truth can make you feel less powerless. And finally, there's a social need, the desire to feel special, to be part of the small group that gets it when everyone else is being fooled.
And this whole thing gets supercharged by a little glitch in our brains called confirmation bias. We are all hardwired to look for information that confirms what we already believe, and to ignore stuff that challenges it. So once someone decides the landing was faked, their brain will go down a YouTube rabbit hole looking for proof while dismissing all the hard evidence, like the moon rocks, as just being part of the cover-up.
And believe me, this is not just some tiny fringe idea. It is a huge global belief. In a country like Russia, over half the population thinks the moon landing was faked. It's just a really powerful reminder that sometimes a good story can feel more true than the actual facts.
So in the end, this whole debate is about way more than just flags and old photos. It really makes us ask a bigger question about ourselves. The evidence is overwhelming that we pulled off something miraculous. But the fact that the hoax theory is still so popular shows that sometimes the story we want to believe is more powerful than the facts themselves. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What other truths might we be rejecting simply because we prefer a different story?